Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2018. And we have another school shooting, as I'm sure you're well aware of. It's all over the news. Been streaming it for the past 5 hours. Some of the things, and I know this will be a heated topic, because people oftentimes they don't think intelligently and intellectually. They react. They react with emotion, knee-jerk reactions. That's our problem. You want to know what our problem is? You want to know what our problem is? This is just another example, another outgrowth of same problem. Same problem. The problem is us. The problem is what our society has become, what our roles are today in our society. Once again, our government is supposed to be we the people, by the people, for the people. Our government, they're our elected officials. We are still saddled with the responsibility of running our country. We're still saddled with that responsibility, the responsibility of protecting our rights and of looking out for one another as Americans. And making sure, overseeing what that government is doing that we've elected. In other words, our government, our elected officials, they're not there to govern us. That's not what they're there to do. They're there to represent us. We are a self-governing country. It's how we're set up. We are our government. That sounds revolutionary, doesn't it? If it sounds revolutionary, or it sounds like, wait a minute, is that true? If you even have to ask yourself that for one moment, that shows you, that proves my point, that shows you exactly how far we've moved away from what we're supposed to be and the responsibilities that each one of us as a citizen in this nation are supposed to uphold. And and I know something's wrong, and it's not just inanimate objects like a gun or a knife or a pipe or gunpowder or fertilizer or anything that you can make an explosive out of, or baseball bats that you could bludgeon someone with, or any of this kind of stuff. The problem is, why are we doing it? Why are so many people doing this kind of stuff? Why? Why are kids, children? Why are children? Why do they want to get up and come into a school and kill their classmates or kill their teachers or just kill people in general? Why? Why? Think about that. Think about that from a sane point of view. If you're someone that's made it into adulthood and you've never killed anybody, think about the mind that must be animating these bodies and these children that would lead them to do something like this. From every angle you can conceive it. Not just that it's like an unconscionable thing, that how can you have a conscience at all and commit this kind of atrocious, heinous act? And then, even if you're a sociopath, do you not realize that your life comes to a complete end now? Basically, you'll be incarcerated the rest of your life if you don't receive the death penalty. Your life is over. So it's you can't call other people insane and say that their religions are crazy, whatever their dogma is. Ours, it's because you can't blame the religion. You can't blame. This is a matter of people. This is a matter of some defect. Something's wrong. And it's become widespread, endemic. You look at a religion like, and I'm not going to, this is just trying to get to the point here some way or another that somebody can relate to it, or maybe. I'm not trying to ram it down your throat and say that I'm know all and I'm right. It's just my opinion, what it seems to me. When you talk about like Islamic, religions, Muslim religion, we believe that's synonymous now with zealots that are just this crazy doctrine where they want to go out in the name of their religion and they're going to murder and they're going to kill and they're going to cut people's heads off and every other thing. Just think about that. We think that's insane. You think it's completely insane with all the things that we do in the world, our government does in this world, all the things that we do. All the things that we do, okay? You want to talk about shithole countries? All those countries are shitholes. Have you been to any of them? Have you been to any of them? I've traveled extensively, believe it or not, in another life. This life, not like an ethereal other life, but in another time. And those places are shitholes. I saw D.L. Hewley, who I don't often agree with necessarily, who was basically spot on when he said if they're shitholes, it's because the United States more or less turned them into shitholes or allowed them to turn into shitholes or began the process of something that led to them becoming shitholes. That's largely true. If you're uninitiated and you don't know what I'm talking about, perfect example, I've heard everybody defend these African nations that none of these countries, they're not shitholes. Why are they shitholes? Because of the color of people's skin? No, because they are shitholes. Do you realize Libya, this is my diamond of an example. When Gaddafi was in charge of Libya, the Obama administration, along with Hillary Clinton right next to him, we've got to get rid of him. He's got to go. He's a tyrant. He's horrible. He's oppressive. He's got to go for the people's sake there. For the people's sake, we've got to get rid of him. But then on the other hand, there's always two sides to every coin, right? There's three sides to every story. Yours, mine, and the right, the truth. And when he was in power, shelter or owning a home ownership was a basic human right that everyone had in his country. No one was homeless. There was no homelessness. In fact, when he came and visited the U.S., he slept in a tent. This was a famous event. He slept in a tent on the White House lawn. He wouldn't sleep inside because he refused to sleep inside until every other citizen in his country had a home. He and his family would sleep in a tent and live in a tent until everyone else in his country had a home. And he set about to make that happen, and he made it happen. Zero interest rates to afford people the money to buy a home if they wanted to have a home. I mean, he just did so many things. He wanted to be a farmer. He was funded by the government, paid for the government. He put people to work, and he put people in homes. And there was a point in time where Libya was among the wealthiest per capita nations on the continent of Africa. Okay, so that's a stellar example. Now, did he do some horrible things? Sure, I guess he probably did. But did he do some really good things that we can't even do? Yeah, he did that too. So when we went and took him out of there, we got rid of him. He ended up dead, in other words. What did we put in place? What was our better suggestion? Nothing. We rolled out. And, he predicted at least 2 times where you can reference it very easily. You can Google it very easily and find at least 2 places in writing, in the press, where he stated that if you get rid of me, a lot of bad things are going to happen. And he was spot on with what happened. It's happening in the world today. It's happening exactly like that. First, he said Europe will be flooded with immigrants. Flooded. Because I'm the gatekeeper. They don't get through here because of me. So everything he said came true. He said a lot more. If you really are that interested, if you think it's bullshit, then you don't need to know anymore. But if you really are interested, Google it and read it for yourself. My point being, when everybody wants to talk about Black Lives Matter and they want to talk about, it's not a shithole. African nations, what do you mean it's a shithole? Nobody even mentioned Libya. And today in Libya, you can go to Libya and you can buy a black man from another black man for $400. And that's the highest valued life there, because this is a hard worker that's very healthy and strong, $400. Top of the line. Top of the line. The Rolls Royce. out of the pickings. You can buy other slaves. You can buy a child. You can buy a woman. $400. You can buy a man that can work for you. That can be a hard worker. And that's black people selling black people. Still today. Now you would think that people would scream over that. Like, we've got to change that. If you want to go in the streets with signs and scream and holler and carry on, I don't see any signs march up and down the street saying, you know, we've created this destabilization and it's developed into this where the gun rules there right now. What can we do about it? What are we going to do? Let's do something. Demand the representatives to own up and let's chip in and help. The United Nations has been asking for I don't know how long people to help. Is all this news to all you people? But everybody has an opinion, but people don't know any of the, you know, the real shit that goes on. You know, all the tentacles that are actually attached to it. All they spot is the octopus. They don't see what all the tentacles are moving around. They're playing shell games everywhere, right? Getting away with it all. So we're not responsible for our government. We're supposed to be. So anything happens. So there's horrible atrocities happening everywhere. And we think it's crazy because somebody from there wants to come here. And their life's ambition is to somehow get to the United States and kill as many of us as possible. And then they can die and they're happy to go. And it's an honorable death. And that seems insane. But if you look through their eyes, what have they been through and everything? And who do they blame? The great Satan. They blame us. I'm not saying we're the great Satan. But I'm saying that maybe a lot of people that we put in office, maybe they kind of are. And maybe we're not watching out for them. Maybe we're not looking at what they're doing. Maybe we're just buying the bullshit that they feed us. And well, oh, it's okay because they say this and say that, so I believe it. You know, because the game's coming on, that's more important this week. Or because I have bills to pay, which is reality. And because I have children to raise and people to clothe and people to feed and a life to manage. I don't have time to be concerned with that. I elected them to do it. Well, they're not doing it. They're not doing it very well. And getting this back around and bringing it home to the school shooting, it's the same thing. We have people this crazy in our own country now. So if they want to tout that we need to do something, gun control, all these school shootings, there's so many of them, it's horrible, it's terrible. Yeah, it is. But why are people doing it? Why? Just because they can get a gun? You could get a gun here easier 100 years ago. You could get a gun here easier 50 years ago. Well, there are more people and there are more guns. Yeah, but per capita, I don't know. I think it was pretty much just as easy to get a firearm anytime. I think it's probably a little bit more difficult today to get one than it would have been 50 or 100 years ago. So why now? And then, okay, if that would solve all this, I'd say, okay, let's do it. But if we get rid of guns, the genie's out of the bottle. How do you collect all the guns that are out there? How do you do that? And people aren't going to want to give up their guns, and rightfully so. And you know why? Because you're not going to get the guns from the criminals. They're not registered. Do you think the criminals, the gangs, and all that are out there committing, you know, their criminal activities, racketeering and so forth and so on, in one form or another, every day that's a life? There are plenty of people that live this way. Do you think that they do not have stockpiles of ammunition and firearms? They do. Do you think they would just comply and hand these over? Do you think we can track that all down somewhere? It's all written down, who has what? No, it's not. So therein is the problem. If you can't take everybody's, then you can't take, you know, John Doe, who's a tax-paying, law-abiding citizen that has a family to defend, because you can't defend him. You can't stop these school shootings before they happen. And you're not going to be able to stop somebody from coming through your front door if that's their intention. If you don't have a gun and they come through the door with a gun, guess what? Guess who runs the show? You're at their mercy. So yeah, people aren't going to just hand their guns over. The reason they're not is because the criminals are not going to hand their guns over. And as long as they're armed, then maybe you may need to be armed. And the best firearm to have is one that you never need. But I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. You understand? And those responsible people, they're not going out and shooting up schools. So how do you separate them? How do you keep the the guns out of the hands of the nuts? I don't know. I'm not the smartest guy in the population of our country. I'm not the smartest. So who is? Where are the good ideas? Not the knee-jerk emotional reactions. Not the politicians that we've elected and given so much of our power to and just handed our lives over and put the collar on and let them have the other end of the chain just to drag us around, and then they'll just sell anything to us that it's going to get us calmed down. They'll say any fucking thing. Where are the good ideas, the real ideas, the honest ideas that might really work? That's what we need. I mean, why are we doing this? And then say you don't have guns. Will they use a hammer? Will they set the place on fire? Is it going to? The problem is that they want to do this. It's not the problem how they do it. Okay? Temporarily it is. Right now you could focus on that and say, well, it's a lot more easier for them to walk in there and kill people with an AR, semi-automatic rifle, that with multiple clips, than it would be with a hammer. Fair enough. But the problem is people want to do it. People are killing people. That person's still probably going to kill somebody. All lives are valuable. So that's what we need to do. We need to figure out, how are we producing these people? What is it that's doing this? Is it environment? Is it all the radio waves going through everybody's brain all day and some people are just genetically predisposed to this kind of effect? Or is it something else? And then in this case, I just saw on the news, on the stream that's been going on for 5 friggin' hours, news reporters say, if you see something, say something. If you suspect someone's state of mind may not be right, volunteer that information. Well, this kid here in question right now that they've arrested for this, last year they knew he was a problem. He wasn't even allowed on the campus with a backpack because he was a threat. He had already threatened students. People were scared of him. There's no shortage of people coming forward saying, yeah, well, who couldn't see this coming? But it didn't do any good. And who supervises this kid? Well, he's not a kid. He's 19 years old. He's a grown man. 100 years ago at 19 years old, unquestionably he's a man. So what's the difference today? He's still a man. Right? You see where I'm getting at that? Things have changed so far. We've gone so far to one side that it's no more good. We're eradicating ourselves. We're eroding our whole foundation here. Do you get any of this? Does it make sense or seems nonsense? 100 years ago, 150 years ago, that 19-year-old was well into his manhood. Today, he's still a kid. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's part of the problem. So, I don't have any solution, but nobody's elected me into office and put that kind of power in my hands and put that kind of faith into me or saddled me with that responsibility. We don't even carry the weight we're supposed to carry now. We don't even oversee the control of our government and our officials now. So that's not my job, but we need people in there that can make the decisions, not people with knee-jerk reactions. I think every one of these son of a bitches that we've elected, I don't care which party they're from, every one of them, from henceforward, that just comes out and just gives you a one-liner or a catchphrase or some bullshit like that at every opportunity, he's got to go. He's got to go. We should be in front of wherever he resides with pitchforks and torches just screaming that he needs to go. Immediately, he's got to go, got to resign, and give somebody else a chance. And if that son of a bitch wants to get in there and do the same thing, try to double talk us and talk in circles, everything, then he's got to go. We've got to stop putting up with this bullshit and just giving these people a lifestyle, keeping them in a lifestyle, and they do shit for us in return. It's just my opinion. Not in the greatest mood anyway. My dad did pass away. But it's just this, where is all this heading? What's the end result eventually? It won't get better on its own. So even if we get rid of firearms, then what's next? Then how will people find a creative way to kill people? It's not my job to sit around all day thinking about how can I kill a whole lot of people without a gun. But there are nuts out there, people that are driven to do so for whatever reason. We need to find out why they're driven. Why are we producing these people like this today? That's the problem. You know, you want to get rid of the guns, get rid of the guns. Go ahead.
Ain't gonna solve the problem.
Yeah, when that doesn't fix it, when they still find a way to kill each other, and then when all the gangs and, you know, all the cretins and at street level, you know, that are out there with just rooms and basements full of guns, when they still have their guns and then they're preying on everybody and nobody has a gun, then what's next? We're going to have to require police officers to be psychic so that they can be there before the crime is committed. Anyway, you guys got any really good suggestions, man? I'd like to hear them. I'm just curious. I don't expect we'll solve this. I don't expect anybody will. Because the people that we've got in office, I think they're incapable of solving it. I think they're incapable of really getting together, putting their heads together without arguing, and just giving it an earnest try. But maybe I'm wrong. What do you think?